Vocal production is one of the most fundamental aspects of music production, and getting it right is actually quite simple. The basics of pretty much any vocal chain is going to be an EQ, compressor, some tuning, and then a spatial effect like reverb or delay, or the combination of them. Today we're going to be working with one of my tracks called Get Home, featuring an artist called Lara Gear, and this is what the raw vocals sound like.
It's 3 a.m. I'm scrolling through my phone. I think I've turned.
And then this is what the vocals sound like with processing.
It's 3 a.m. I'm scrolling through my phone. I think I've turned.
Another interesting aspect of this production is that it also contains my vocals, and I'm not really a very confident singer, so I use all kinds of processing and layering and techniques and tricks to get my vocals to sound good. This is what my raw vocal sounds like.
I've been losing my mind trying to figure it out, trying to get home.
But after processing and layering, this is what I get my vocal to sound like.
I've been losing my mind trying to figure it out, trying to get home.
Okay, so firstly, let's go to Lara's vocal and see what I've done there, because with her, it's literally just one take that we've done, and all of the processing happens on that. It's not a very complex vocal, but the fundamentals of how I've done the processing and production on this apply to pretty much any vocal you'll come across. So firstly, I've got an EQ rolling off some of the low end. And this is very common because most microphones pick up a very wide range, including the very low frequency range. And although our voices occupy that space, it's not really audible, especially in conjunction with an instrumental track that already takes up that lower space. So basically just rolling off up to about 150 hertz. Her voice is kind of high and I want it to be a little more angelic, so I'm not really taking advantage of, say, that 50 hertz gap between 100 and 150 hertz. You could do something there. Then I've got Waves Tune Real Time, which is my favorite tuning plugin. To me, it's got the most natural sound. Basically, I've just got it set to the key, and I've got the retune speed really low, but the note transition speed isn't all the way down. If you want that T-Pain sounding vocal, you're gonna go all the way down to the bottom. Okay, then I've got two different compressors running on this vocal, and there's a very specific reason for this, right? If you have a look at a vocal, it's very dynamic. Like, you've got this first section is very quiet, and then here she sort of belts out really loud.
And all my friends say.
The first compressor I've got here is really just taming the loudest parts of the quiet section of her vocal, right? So if you have a look at the compression and the gain reduction here, it's actually very, very subtle.
It's 3 a.m. I'm scrolling through my phone.
And that to me was just enough. And then when we get to the loudest part, that's what the second compressor is for. It's really just to tame these extreme peaks and glue the whole vocal together. So just have a look at when this compressor actually kicks in with a gain reduction on this loudest part here.
Everything I've ever known. And all my friends say.
All right, there we go. That's kind of getting us there. Then I've got this de-esser, and de-esser basically just handles the sibilants, the sounds in words, right? So it's basically where she says friends and say. The actual from friends and the actual from say is what it's going to attenuate. It's just going to bring down those frequencies a little bit to not overwhelm your ears with those high frequencies.
And all my friends say.
You can see over there how it engages, right? Then next I've got this plugin from Eosis. I think it's pronounced Eosis. It's the same company that makes this de-esser that I'm using. It's basically an EQ, but it's doing something more. I don't really know exactly what it's doing, but it's effectively like boosting the higher frequencies of the sound that's coming into it. It basically just adds a little bit of sparkle and air to the vocal. So I'll just be engaging and disengaging it throughout so that you can hear the actual impact that it has on it.
I'm scrolling through my phone. I think I've turned on to everything.
This is going to be more effective if you're actually wearing headphones, so you'll be able to hear the difference. But yeah, that's not essential. You don't have to have that plugin, but it's something I really like, and I really find that it makes vocals sound really good, light, and sort of angelic. Next, we've got reverb, which is our spatial effect that we're adding on here. It's to basically take that really dry vocal and put it in some sort of room. That's a good way to look at it. Some people also refer to reverb as being the mayonnaise of music production, which I think is a pretty good analogy. It's something that goes on everything, and it works really well to just bring things together and just, you know, get that sound or that flavor that you're looking for. So with the reverb on, you'll hear how the vocal immediately steps into a much bigger, more present space.
It's 3 a.m. I'm scrolling through my phone. I think I've turned on to.
And then finally, we've just got an EQ here rolling off even more of the low end because, like I mentioned before, I want the vocals to be very angelic and sort of wispy and high up there, you know? And then lastly, I've got a trick on here that I really like to use on vocal production. Now, I'm sure you've seen some vocal chains where people have a long reverb and then they compress or they sidechain that reverb to the vocal itself. And it's basically to control it so that whenever the vocal is actually present, the reverb ducks down a little bit, and then at the end of a word, the reverb comes back in. Now, I like to do that in a little bit more of a manual way so that I've got a bit more control over that. And that is by using send channels. And basically, I'm sending the actual vocal to a different effect, and then that effect comes back into the mix, right? So just to show you exactly what that looks like. Basically, this is the automation for this send channel. And on the send channel, I've got a very long reverb with like an 11-second decay, almost 12 seconds there, and it's set to 100% dry wet. So basically, from this reverb channel, we are only hearing the actual reverb effect and none of the dry vocal. This is what only the reverb sounds like. And I like to use that because if you accentuate one sound, one specific note of a vocal, and let it ring out, without that reverb being re-triggered and re-triggered, it doesn't create a mess. It basically adds a layer in just for that specific section. So have a listen to the vocal with that on.
My friends say
You hear how that note just drags out, it just keeps going, right? So that is basically the female vocal. And I am running through this because I don't think this is too complex. And I feel like if you don't have this sort of base of knowledge, other more complex vocal production techniques aren't really necessary. Now it's time to get into my vocal, the one that I'm a little bit less confident with showing on camera and sort of showing on YouTube, but I feel like this is very important because I know there's a lot of producers or singers out there that maybe aren't the most confident singers, but they've got a vision for a song, or they've got good tone in their voice, and they've got something that they want to express. That's why we've got all these tools to be able to help us to get our voice and our sounds out there in the world. So if you have a look at my vocal chain, it's pretty much the same thing, right? We've got an EQ running into a compressor, except in this instance, I'm using a different compressor. That isn't too important. It was something I was looking for. I was looking for a different compressor. That's not making or breaking the track. It's just a preference thing. Then we've also got MetaTune here, which is a different tuning plugin. My vocal needs that extra tuning. I'm not very good with like naturally singing on pitch. So that's why I've got this plugin. And then once again, I've got just a basic reverb. I've got fresh air again to just boost the highs, and then I've got another EQ at the end. So that's basically the main sort of lead vocal, right? And now I want to show you how I get my vocal to sound even fuller, because at the moment, this is what my vocal sounds like.
I've been losing my mind trying to figure it out, trying to get home.
It's fine, right? It's possible. But what I've done is I've then gone and recorded 2 additional takes, and these are called doubles or double tracking. Now I've got one panned all the way to the left and one panned all the way to the right. And the whole idea behind this is to just have the lead vocal sit in the center of the mix, be the most prominent one, and then we've got additional ones to just fill in that space. You'll see that I've done the processing here a little bit differently. I've taken out, scooped down a lot of the high end of it because I want the central vocal to be a lot more present, and I want it to have all of that air. I don't want the doubles competing for that same space, and I don't want the sibilants, is it sibilants? I'm not sure. I don't want the sibilants to sibilants. It can easily happen with your sibilant sounds that they end up sort of colliding because they can be a little bit rhythmic. So just taking that down a little bit leaves space in the center for the lead vocal. Then I've got compression and I've got tuning again. So I'm just really making sure that it all sits together. Now those 3 vocals together sound like this.
I've been losing my mind trying to figure it out, trying to get home.
Okay, so you can hear it's a lot bigger, it's a lot more powerful, right? But now one extra aspect, I like to use the falsetto side of my voice. And falsetto is basically sometimes referred to as the Mickey Mouse voice, but you're not actually engaging your vocal cord. I don't think you're engaging your vocal cord, but you're basically singing out of, like you're pushing air out of your throat. To give you an idea of what that sounds like, fair warning, it is a little bit cringe and it is a little bit uncomfortable to listen to, but this is my falsetto vocal. Kind of useless on its own, but if you listen to it in the context with just the center vocals, I'm going to ignore the double tracked vocals for now, but this is what it sounds like.
I've been losing my mind trying to figure it out, trying to get home.
You hear that it's gone and created a lot more sort of range or thickness in my vocal. And if we listen to it all together,
I've been losing my mind trying to figure it out, trying to get home.
That's basically what all the vocal processing sounds like on this track. And to give you an idea of what the full track sounds like altogether, you can also listen to the full thing on Spotify. I'll link it down below. But this is basically the whole track.
it's 3 a.m. I'm scrolling through my phone. I think I've turned on to every everything I've ever known. And all my friends say
I've been losing my mind, trying to figure it out, trying to get home.